No. Then why do I have this? Okay, throw me the one you have. You just ruined the surprise of mine. Khalas, that's it. What do I do? Oh, I can see it here now. I'll turn this one towards the audience. No? Ah, okay. Yes, but this isn't the beginning. Nice beginning. Oh, yes, no problem. Um, Sajjad, there's nothing left for the imagination. Like, there's only one thing I want to say before I begin. Um, I told Sultan, to make your presentation better, just give every one of the women in the room a Dharmaki shoe. And he didn't listen. Anyway, it's really hard to I mean, all of the presentations are really hard to follow. I mean, all the presentations are amazing, and I'm going to really try and make mine really dramatic. Many of you probably don't know me very well, and the few who know me from the art world are probably wondering, is it safe to give him a microphone? Anyhow, I've always loved art from a very early age, and I process images in a different way. I see things, of course, like Sajjad ruined my presentation. I see things within things. I'd see clouds and I see images. I see stains and I see different things. I see tiles. I see tiles. I see tiles. Anyway, and I see things within them. And anyhow, so I love to draw and I love to sketch, and I used to sketch everywhere. I used to sketch on everything. I used to sketch anytime, and school at an early age wasn't an exception. I draw in my books, especially when the subject was boring. I draw in the books, and I draw. And when the textbooks were done, then I draw on the table, on the desk, and every now and then the teacher would pull me from my ear, ever so gently. The education guy is not here. Okay. So anyway, and put me in the corner. And eventually, I just became an expert at being pulled and put in the corner because I just didn't stop sketching. And then I thought, I knew that being in the, I mean, I spend a lot of time in the corner, so I decided to take my pencil with me to the corner. And that was a bad thing. So anyhow, I fast forward to 1985. It was time for me to leave Abu Dhabi and go to the United States for my university education. And because I got pulled into the corner a lot, I didn't get a very good grade to get me a scholarship. So my father promised that he's going to pay for all my education while I was in the States. And unfortunately, a year into my education in the States, my father passed away. I had just come back. I was celebrating my birthday, and I came back to my beautiful apartment. I had a nice car. I had money in my pocket. I had nice clothes, and I came home and I called. I was calling my family because I wanted to tell them where's my birthday present. And I called, and they said, your father just passed away. And I immediately, very quickly, went from being a carefree, wealthy young man to being a very worried old man, poor old man. And there was no savings, and I had done a lot of bad things where everything went and inheritance was frozen for some reason, and anyway, that's a different TEDx presentation. So I was faced with two options. One was, khalas, go back to Abu Dhabi, take a job that is whatever it's within your qualifications, and have that solution. Short term, but that's the easiest one. Or figure out how you're going to pay for the rest of your education while you're in the States, knowing that there's absolutely no money. Because I wasn't born into a big, rich family that had buildings and land and everything, no. So I chose to stay and finish my education, get my university degree. And at that moment, that is the moment that was the beginning of my journey of self-discovery. And the decision that I made there dictated how I discovered myself, and because of my discovery of myself, how I managed to help my community later on. And if I can quote Gandhi when he said, "You must be the change you wish to see in the world." And I knew I wanted to do something great with my life, and just going back was out of the question. And I knew that having a university degree and staying in the States as much as possible was a good thing for me at that time, because I was interested in art. And if I had a little window of opportunity to mix with people who had the same interest, or even just sneak into a class, an art class, then I would do that. And I knew it was hard. I mean, it was really easy for me to just say, khalas, I'll just go back to Abu Dhabi and just get a job and get a loan and get a nice car and whatever, and just, live that cycle of death. But I knew that it was worth it. I knew that if I stayed in the States somehow, and I got my education, came back with a university degree, that it was worth it, worth whatever I had to go for. So I learned, along the way, I learned 5 lessons. And the first lesson is that nothing worthwhile comes easy. And I knew that I wanted to be a great artist, and I knew that the circumstances were, everything was saying no, but I knew that I had to do it. So I thought, okay, now this is the decision that I decided to take. Now I have to live, now I have to live by the decision that I took. And this lesson is not only adopted in art or in a university degree. It's adopted in everything. I'm sorry, I'm trying to catch up with Sultan's popularity. So anyhow, and I learned that everything easy really is not worth it, whether it's easy love or easy power, easy money, and that's why the saying "easy come, easy go." And if I can quote Frederick Douglass when he says, "If there is no struggle, there is no progress." Those who profess to favor freedom yet depreciate agitation are men who want crops without plowing the ground. My second lesson is we are in a constant state of transit. And this is the image that you will see is, these are the tools of my first job. I was in the States and I needed to finance my education. And of course, anybody who, no, anyhow. When you're a student, a foreign student in the States, you can't get a glamorous job. So you can do things like this. And I thought, you know what, if this is going to be a step, if this is only a transit point that will get me to my final destination, then be it. And if I have to go down on my knees and scrub floors and clean windows, but I know that at the end I will reach my real target, then so what? I'll do it. I made $5 an hour. And my job description, I had a job description. I was supposed to make sure that the floors were clean and the cabinets were in order, and every cabinet had to have toilet paper because we didn't want people angry that they don't have toilet paper. And this is a lesson to people who think that certain jobs are below them. You know, it's been a long time since I cleaned the bathroom or washed the floor or whatever, but it taught me a lot because it prepared me for the journey that I still continue until today. So that wasn't enough, you know, the toilet paper thing wasn't enough. So what I did is then I continued also, and I started, you know, washing clothes in a storage room. And also another thing is I really don't know why I did this, but I started testing dive equipment, dive suits, used dive suits. And if you've ever been to the Pacific Northwest of the United States, you do not want to discover that the suit has a leak in it. And the problem is you can't drink coffee afterwards because it's like this. But you have to determine what's the stop and what's the stepping stone. Because at the time when you're sitting on when you're on your knees and you're you know, trying to scrub a floor, you're looking at yourself being an Emirati, you go, is this what I am now? Is this what life ended as? And you have to determine that it's only a stop. And it's only a stepping stone, it's not a stop. And that's where I learned that we have a lot of stepping stones in our lives, and a lot of them are, each one of us is either at a stop or a stepping stone. No, I'm not a genius. It's if you're sad, if you're poor, if you're depressed, if you're in power, if you just lost power, these are all transit points until you get to your final destination, to your dream. And once you get there, then you will, exactly like Dr. Jamal, and when you get there, then you notice that now you want to reach even a higher step. And then the third lesson that I learned, is what is my gift that makes me special? What's the thing that makes me better than anybody else? And this was, I heard this one from an old friend of mine. He was very wise. Actually, I think he's wiser now because he spends much less time with me. But he said that each one of us is born with a certain gift that differentiates him or her from everybody else. And that gift, if harnessed, will make you better than anybody else, and that's your source of rizq, that's your source of income. unfortunately, a lot of people don't find that. And that's why you only find a few people who are brilliant at what they, at their gift. And he told me this because he saw me sketching. And it just reinforced my dream that I want to be, I want to be an artist one day. And the lesson here is that if you have a desire of doing or making or becoming something, pursue it. And after you pursue it, educate yourself in it as much as you can. And after that, seek knowledge. Seek as much knowledge about it. And if I can quote the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he goes, seek education even if it takes you to China. And this also reminds me, in the early 80s, I fell in love with computers in the early 80s. This is before computers hit houses. And this was just the beginning. This was at the birth. This was maybe in 81 or 82, and this was at the birth of the personal computer. This is what my computer looked like. This is a ZX Sinclair. I have to share the specifications on this thing. Deal with that power. And what I did is I taught myself everything I can about computers, as much as I can. And the problem is, this is before the internet, this is before anything digital, before USBs or CDs or MP3s or any of the E's that we're used to right now. And what I used to do is, when I knew that somebody's going to go to the US or to Europe or anywhere, I'd give them a big list of magazines and books that I want them to get to bring me, because I needed knowledge. And there was nothing. There was no reference, nothing, nobody that you can ask. So I would give them the list, and I think what they would do is they would go and they'd finish their business and stuff, and then on the way back, they're going for their VAT receipts and stuff, and they find the list. And they're like, oh. So they go to a bookshop and get anything that has a computer on it, even if it's not related to my ZX Sinclair. And guess what I did? Because it was knowledge, what I did is I took it and I read it anyway. And I read it, and I read it backwards, and I flipped it around, and I just read it, and read it, and read it. And then when I was done reading it, I'd fold it and put it in a plastic bag and put it on the magazine shelf. There was only one magazine, it was that one. And then I found out that a friend of mine had the same problem, and he had a magazine. So I lent him my magazine, and he lent me his, and now I can proudly say that I read 2 magazines on my, but I didn't go for the 64K. Sajjad. Anyway, I went for the 1K because the 64 was just way too expensive. And at that point, I mean, I kept on doing that until eventually I taught myself BASIC. The beginner's all-purpose symbolic instruction code, computer language. I taught myself here in Abu Dhabi just by reading things about other computers. I taught myself. And these were the seeds that made me eventually mix my computer skills with my art skills to become one day the premier digital artist of the UAE. And because of that, in 1996, the first digital art exhibition in the history of the UAE happened because of my paintings. The fourth lesson I learned was how to accept criticism. And I remember one day I was building what was later on addressed as the biggest outdoor stage in the history of the Dubai Shopping Festival. And I was building it. You know, I sketched it, and then I put it in 3D, and then I got a company, and I started building it. And then a person who was working with me, he ran to me and he showed me a newspaper article, and he goes, look, and obviously he didn't read it, because when I read it, it was criticism. They criticized everything about my work and a little bit about myself. And then I learned that if I detach myself from my work, then it's no longer a personal insult. It's actually good for my work. And even there was a reporter on the on site at the same time, and he said, "Oh, you're angry?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "Remember, when you start getting criticized, that means you're making it. That means you're successful." The fifth lesson is how to deal with rejection. And I remember eventually after cleaning so many clothes and bathrooms and toilet paper and doing all of that, eventually I did graduate. I did get a degree in international marketing and entrepreneurship with a minor in graphic design. And I had it in my hand, and I go, okay, now I'm ready to go back to Abu Dhabi. And I by now I was very proud of my accomplishment, because yeah, I did, against the odds, I did get a university degree. And I came back, and I was an Emirati, and I had, you know, a university degree, and my country will embrace me, and I'll get a good job and a nice car, and I'll go back and becoming wealthy again. Anyway, that didn't happen. I got rejected from 32 places. 32 places. And to add to that injury, after 9 months, and I had a wife and a child at that time, after 9 months of no job, a family friend goes, and they're interviewing for a certain job. They don't want a university graduate. But by now I became desperate. That was a big mistake, but it was a good lesson though. So I went for the interview. I didn't tell them I had a university degree, because I was afraid I would get rejected for ironically, for something that I worked so hard for. And I got the job. And I made 2,500 dirhams a month. And that was the best thing that ever happened to me. After that, of course, life has changed a lot since that job. But it was the best thing that happened to me, because it kept me hungry. And it's the hunger that kept me going. Because I was already, by now I was used to being rejected and criticized, and I was used to the hard work, and I worked in the hardest possible places. So I was used to this. But anyhow, I rose above that, and as you saw earlier, in '96 I had the first. I gave the UAE its first digital art exhibition, and then in 2006, myself and a friend of mine, Muhammad Kano, opened the first contemporary art gallery in Abu Dhabi. And I initiated, 2 years later, I initiated Jalal's art trip, which is my vehicle to sponsor 10 to 15 emerging artists. I take them on a trip, and then after that, I give them 6 to 8 weeks of workshops where I teach them as much as I can about art and speaking to the media and speaking to the buyers and all of that. And then I bring, and then I have an art exhibition for them after the 8 weeks. I exhibit their work, and then I invite people to come and see their work and buy it. And alhamdulillah, the past 2 years, the exhibition sells out opening night. And I've done, alhamdulillah, I have been given the opportunity by the government and by the people, and a lot of people who notice the hard work that myself and other hardworking Emiratis do. And I've been given the opportunity to represent the country nationally, internationally, and even and locally in art events and festivals. I've had the opportunity to lecture to people even as young as 8 years old, and that's a tough crowd. But the nice thing is, I read it somewhere, it says, he who teaches young children learns more than they do. I managed to work with the office of the late Sheikh Zayed bin Sultan, which was a highlight of my career. And I remember I also had, what happened this day really resonates in my mind every day, because I was painting a Formula 1 car, and Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed came to site, and he looked at me, and I was explaining, he just kept staring at me. And he goes, "It's okay, you don't have to explain anything." I was like, okay. He goes, "You're an icon to all the youth in the country." Obviously, the guy's been paying attention to everything I've done. I know Sajjad's put the red light up there, so I have to hang up soon. Anyway, what I was sad about earlier, about working the bathrooms and everything, it prepared me to work in the hardest possible places, and that helped me because it allowed me to work in the hardest, hottest workshops, to produce some of the biggest work in the Emirati art scene. And I think there's a few. This is one of the things I was working on in those pictures, and I call this one the invisible giant, for all the giants in our society who have become invisible. And there's a few more slides. I will leave you to watch them. Thank you.